All right. Hello, everyone. This is 30 Minutes with a Mom, Dad, and a Young Bachelor. I'm Amanda Sharp.
Andrew Lang, the Bachelor.
Aaron LeDuc, the dad, who
How
drank at an inappropriate time.
cute the timing on that, Aaron. Aaron LeDuc. So, AJ, you're looking mighty fine today. Anything
Thank you.
special? You just felt like looking
dressing
good.
up today.
I mean, you always look good. You just are very dapper looking today.
Thank you.
I
Nothing
like
Sharp
that.
look,
special.
buddy.
Just thought I'd dress up.
And for our viewers who are only listening, you might want to hop on and check out the YouTube video and take a peek at Aaron's apparel. He's
The eye
got
candy.
absolutely the eye candy of the dad. He's got a poncho on this morning, which is interesting and looks very comfortable.
I am very comfortable. I've had this since I was in middle school.
The same one.
Same one. I'm not a big man. I haven't grown much.
AJ was so like, what do you mean the same one? That would mean it's like 20 years old.
I own one poncho, okay? I only ever own one. Gift for my best friend. It still fits me. And I don't know about you guys, but, well, I guess I'm the only one going through this. But I'm kind of like in that nesting phase where I feel like a lot of pressure to get things ready for this baby, more so than I did William. But in William's defense, we closed on our house 3 days after William was born. So we didn't have the house yet.
You didn't have something to nest with.
Exactly. My nesting, I guess, was being on the hunt for the house and securing it and all of that.
Yeah.
So I've literally had 5 gigantic garbage bags of like old clothes that I'm donating to Goodwill just to clear stuff out. And I stumbled upon my old friend here, and I've like worn it every day since. And William said that I looked Chinese wearing it.
Out of the mouths of babes. I mean.
Well, China Dad is very colorful. So that is why I think you look Chinese. I'll take it, son.
He's
I said,
so
can I wear when I drop you off? He's like, no.
It's not like you lock him in. It's the COVID world. So it's kind of like you kick him out of the car.
I don't even have to get out of the car. They come and get, it's like valet for your children. They come right to the door. They open the door.
Did I tell you, we've talked about so much. Did I ever tell you that I'm pretty sure they implemented a new drop-off policy at Owen's school because of me and a couple of the other moms?
No, but
I don't think so.
So we would walk our kids into school because we drove them, and then we would talk like right there. And they were like, go outside. So we went outside, and then they're like, you need to go to the end of the sidewalk. So we went to the end of the sidewalk, and then they're like, this still isn't working. They're not getting the hint. Now everyone just has to drop off their kid. No one's allowed to walk in school.
That is hilarious.
See, when I was in elementary school, that's all it was drop off. I don't ever really remember parents coming in. I mean, I walked to school in elementary school, but the drop off, it was just you stopped, the kid got out and walked right in.
I think the drop-off thing really became big the last 10 years. I don't remember any of my friends getting dropped off at school. They just rode the bus. But, that was in a time that there still wasn't necessarily 2-car families. Like maybe there was just 1 car, and if somebody was at work, like buses were extremely important. They still are. So I don't remember. I mean, obviously with me just going right to school and work is literally like across the street, there's no reason for me not to drop my baby off when it's a normal world and we're not doing virtual.
Yeah.
And I just want to brag for a second. We're 30% through the curriculum, and I have yet to cry this year.
That's a win.
Spoken like a true student.
W.
Remember Amanda State in the spring.
Oh, yeah.
And if they knew I was doing a math lesson, they would check in on me to make sure I survived after it. And there was a lot of tears and a lot of frustration last spring. But in my defense, it was when things were just kind of thrown together and they hoped that it stuck. So this year, the curriculum is just really like It's solid, it's true. They've worked through the kinks of it, the program that we're in, and I'm really loving it. Um, I don't I don't love school, let's be fair. I'm loving the ease of the curriculum because I can print out the lessons. So we have a binder and I have tabs and we're highlighting the PACE guide. That's how I know I'm 30% through the curriculum. It also shows you digitally, like on the actual course too. But I like to highlight and know, like, because some things you have to go back to, and like he has a science assessment essentially that is 2 weeks of observing the moon. How do you observe a move? But the moon, and so he can't quite complete that lesson for another 2 weeks, but he's moving forward, and it's not terrible. Honestly, I don't know if he's going to go back into the classroom after this.
Now, do you think it's easier because it's online, or it's just they've ironed out the wrinkles in the online classes?
I think in this particular school, which is Lincoln Learning, I think they've ironed out all of the hiccups, all the things that didn't work. Um, I and I love Owen School. Like, don't get me wrong. It's just during this time, like last week, they had to shut down for a couple of days because of a couple cases, so they can disinfect the school. And that was what I did not want to deal with. I couldn't deal with the unknown of maybe we'll be in school this week, maybe we won't, and now you have to do everything virtual for the next 2 weeks potentially. And then we're back to the feeling it was in the spring, and that was so terrible.
Mhm.
So this is what I love about it is they give you a pace guide, and they give you an idea of what you should do each day and the due dates. However, you could do all of your courses on a Saturday and Sunday. So if you have parents that are working during the week, like, and the kid doesn't have like the ability to complete some projects during the week, they can really buckle down and get all of those harder lessons that they needed help with done on the weekend. And that's what I find most intriguing, especially in our line of work, because like Wednesdays are pretty busy for me at least. So we just kind of don't use Wednesday as a school day.
Mhm.
Yeah. So I don't know. I'd be curious to see if you would have liked it, AJ.
I've taken some online classes, and the problem with them is, like you said, it's not a normal teacher. And I just, it was an integrated type thing. So I was in high school, but I was also doing online classes just to fill in my schedule. Um, but I didn't feel like doing them. They were boring to me, and I would wait all week to do it, hammer out the week's work on Friday, and then still pass the class. Didn't finish the class. I didn't feel like writing the final essay.
Hey, you completed it and you got a grade, a passing grade,
Exactly.
enough. No, and
Exactly.
but like you said, like if you didn't feel like doing it, or you say you got sick, where you
Mhm.
get really penalized in public schools right now, you only get so many sick days. Actually, I don't know what the attendance policy is this year. I don't know. Age, I don't know.
I know it used to be you were at Carlson, and they had probably one of the most strictest or the most strict attendance policies, and it was, I think, 7 or 8 days a semester you were allowed to miss.
Which is not much. And that has always been my biggest hurdle with public schooling is if Owen's sick, I don't send him and I allow him the proper time to recover, because what good is he getting thrown into it? Now, granted, I have the work schedule that allows for him those extra days where some parents don't. But we would eat up. And like, if you got the flu, there are some bad flus that you're gone an entire week
Oh yeah,
and you're
3-4 day
still not
recovery.
necessarily ready to go back. And so I've always struggled with, we always were like going, okay, should this be a day? And we like to skip, I'm not going to lie. We like to use a good mental health day, every now and then. And now we can do that and it doesn't matter. I mean, it matters. We still have to do the same amount of work, but that Saturday can be our day logged in as opposed to others. So I was really terrified of it, super pleased with how it's going, and I hope the rest of the year continues to go as smoothly.
Mhm.
Fingers crossed.
So what do you think that means for the future of public schools and in-person schools now that you have a more traditional online class that is being tested right now for those people that have held off having kids because they want to travel or what have you, now that you're not tied down to a certain school district or a certain school for 9 months out of the year? what does that mean for the future now? What do
That's a
you?
really good question. As a person that's knee deep into the virtual classroom right now, I know it works for us. And I'm really conflicted with going back at this point because I know Owen's really kind of thriving in this platform. So it would be really hard for me to shove him back into the in person education. With that being said, I don't want Owen's school to lose his funding though, because it's not that I'm unsatisfied with school.
Mhm.
And even I'm not even terrified necessarily of him being in the classroom with COVID. It just was, I couldn't do the back and forth thing. I just couldn't. It wouldn't have worked for Owen. I think it's allowed the people who would excel and thrive with a virtual option the option to finally try it and see it. And I think potentially they might even get better grades and actually do school better because of it. But I don't know. I mean, I know, William, he enjoys going to school for the most part, right? I mean, he doesn't hate it.
He has, and then like it's great he was saying that, and then like Monday morning he's like, "Yeah, Dad, I changed my mind."
He's still young and he's
like,
boy.
I'm kind of over going to school.
Well,
Well,
you're a third way into the year. It starts to the excitement starts to wear off.
He was so funny. We
So
do the drop off, and they set them up in like little staging areas outside. And he told me, the guy walked up, Dad, it was just me and two girls, and I looked at him. I said, "What? Is this a nightmare? Am I having a nightmare?" There's
that
no-
child.
It's just me and some girl. Like, what did the girl say? He's like, "I didn't say anything." I'm like,
He's so funny, Aaron. I just don't even.
it is. Cracks me up.
But I think even if a kid doesn't like in-person schooling, though, there's still a ton of parents that they don't have the option to do virtual, and it just
Oh,
has.
they need it. Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to reference they need it as a daycare, but they have chosen their jobs and their careers based on that being part of their daycare plan, childcare. So I really was fed up with at the beginning of the year or leading up to the beginning of the year, there were so many replies to parents who were struggling with what was going to go on, and people who had grown children or no children at all were saying it should have never been considered daycare from the beginning, blah blah blah. I'm like, just shut up.
I mean, it is a form of daycare. Your kid is gone for 7 to 8 hours a day.
Yeah. I mean, people will say, okay, I'm going to stay at home with my child until he reaches into kindergarten, and then I will go back into the work industry. There's a lot of people have that. And then some people just go, okay, we just have to budget for those first 5 years. And then once they go into school, because then you just maybe need that little bit of before after school care. And I don't look at it as it's not a daycare, but it is a place that your kids go that allow you to not have to be able to pay for daycare, because there's a lot of my friends that they were really strapped going, where do I put my kid this past spring? And I can't afford it because that was never part of our budget.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I do think that I don't know. It'll be interesting to see where it goes. And for Owen's online schooling, the teachers are phenomenal. They are truly grading his assessments, like thoughtful responses. They're not just looking at like right, wrong, and giving us a score. They're telling him like how to complete an answer a little bit more thoroughly, and then this or that. And they're sending emails, they're checking in, and it's so personalized, it's not canned responses. I can't even imagine the amount of time this year, especially with their enrollment being up so high, how much time they spend just in that communication with their students.
Mm-hmm.
I actually feel like I can see more of Owen's progress and stuff than I would have actually if he was in school, especially in 8th grade, because teachers don't really reach out to you. That doesn't mean I'm not concerned about his schooling, though. That's a lot of time talking about Owen's school. Sorry, guys.
I think it's somewhere where the world's going though with this online stuff now. I think it's here to stay, especially with a lot of the jobs. And I think that'll also in return affect at least commercial real estate. They're seeing multiple office businesses that employ your customer service reps and stuff like that. Well, they don't need all these different
Yep.
buildings because you can work from home. You can take phone calls from home.
Yep.
So what do you think that means for just jobs in general and the whole online thing?
I personally, and I'll be curious to see what Aaron's thoughts are because he's kind of been affected by adjusting his workflow. So I think you might have a very unique perspective. What I have seen is a lot of buildings are going to just close down. Like the leases are going to run out because they just don't need the space that they thought they at one point needed. And what I think I love most about this is that from an HR standpoint and a business owner standpoint, I think so many companies have humanized their employees again during all of this, where they understand, okay, we have to make them go at home, but they might also have children at home. How can during this season we both win? And it has not been so black and white. And I welcome that perspective of them like looking into a different tunnel, or whatever it may be, that allowed them to get a little bit more flexible with their work, because I think it's super important. And it was that, or their employees wouldn't have been able to work still. And then they would have not been able to keep their doors open either, or the calls going out. And I mean, you couldn't train new people. And a lot of people were making more on unemployment than they would have working. And so to even find new employees would have been really a struggle too. So I think we're going to see a major shift in how things are done, not necessarily for the worse though. I do think for the better. Aaron, what are your thoughts?
I hope so. And they kind of, I know a particular company that now is letting everyone work from home. They're a big company. And like, they're not supposed to go back until January. And I'm kind of like, how do you, working from home, I think is fantastic. I love it. But how do you kind of, now that the cat's been let out of the proverbial bag and now all your employees that want to work from home have been working from home since March, how do you be like, all right, you got to start driving back into the office? I mean, I know people that have like an hour commute. Like, I've got 2 hours of my life back.
Yeah.
They don't have that commute. And it's like, you can't tell me that you need me in the office because for the past 9 months, I haven't been in the office. You know, deadlines are still getting hit. Level of service hasn't gone down. How do you tell these people, no, we need you back in here now? What happens when the employees are like, no?
Well, I mean,
proven the idea that we can work from home completely.
Mm-hmm. And
there are some.
Go ahead. Well, I was going to say, I understand some businesses who don't want this as a long-term solution. That, I mean, I personally like thrive when I'm in front of the people and love seeing the people. And while Zoom is amazing, and I'm so grateful for it because it makes things be able to move forward still. I mean, there are some industries that are just better when they are in person. People are more comfortable. So I can see some businesses saying, okay, yes, we have been okay. And by the grace of God, we've made it, but we do need to implement more of the standard, and that's their right. But that might mean that there are people, seek employment elsewhere.
I agree.
So do you think that the working remote will be more of a benefit to like for someone looking for a job? The working remote will be more of a benefit?
100%. There's so many workers out there now that have gotten a taste for it. And granted, I'm with Amanda. I think some people absolutely hate it. I'm sure there's some people out there that really miss their coworkers and miss that human interaction. I mean, there's a guy on my team that, he's a single dude and his parents live in another state. So I God only knows what this guy's going through.
Sure.
Not able to see anybody. He's all alone, But then again, he could have gone to his parents out of state and worked from their house this whole time and had the human interaction then too. I mean, a buddy of mine went and worked in Tennessee for a couple of weeks. He rented a cabin and then they rented a house in Florida and they worked remotely. You mentioned that with education now that people that want to travel with kids, their kids can stay in their school. Same thing with working adults, even with kids. In fact, my buddy has 3 little girls and they did the school and both of them worked for the same company, and they were in Florida for a couple weeks, Tennessee for a couple weeks. it was phenomenal. So I think it's going to be a huge benefit. I think a lot of people that were kind of hesitant to work from home before, now they have, and they see the benefit. They see the lack of the commute, I mean, the miles they've saved on their car, the gas. It's going to be a huge, if you own a company, I think that's going to be a huge competitive advantage. Like, we offer a significant amount of time working from home. I thought it was before the pandemic. My day job, when they implemented it, huge. I mean, you got to do it for like, you had to, it wasn't like wide open. You couldn't work from home all the time, but like, if you need, for instance, I wanted to volunteer at my son's school. I lived an hour away from where I live, right? If I wanted to volunteer at Williams School for a couple hours, I could work from home that day, go do the couple hours at the school, and then come back. But
Right.
like, I couldn't just work from home because I wanted to work from home, or God forbid you had a dentist appointment. You'd have to sit there the whole day, and it's huge. But man, I really, circling back to answer AJ's question, yeah, 100%. If I were to get another day job, it would be 100% remote or nothing, or at least a significant amount where over 50% of my week I could be remote.
Well, and we have to also remember that we went remote with people who already were doing what they're doing. Like, there wasn't a need to train you. You were able to work from home and not miss a beat because you had that advantage of being in person, understanding the company, and all of that good stuff. To actually allow that privilege to a brand new employee and expect them to, like, your work ethic had already been displayed. There's a lot of people who are abusing the working from home too. So I think they'll just have to, the biggest hurdle I could see is how do they manage to see if someone's actually working or not. I know some like systems, like when they actually, it's always been a work from home environment, they can actually see if you're on your computer or not.
Right. They can track it. And I guess you got to consider too, is this an hourly position or a salary position where, hourly you're paying them for that hour. You expect the full hour's worth of work. Whereas someone that's salaried might be more deadline and project based. And you know what? As a company, if I'm giving you a salary, like AJ, you're a salary employee of mine. I need this program done by the end of the month. If you're able to get it done and meet the standards of quality, and you're able to do it in 40 hours a week, great. If you're able to do it in 38, even better. Yeah, once you've had, this is kind of getting off the new employee thing, but once you've had an employee for a long time,
right?
I don't expect them to need 40 hours to get done what some new person's doing. And, some projects, you're going to work over your 40 hours to get done, and if you're salary, you're not compensated for that. So, I don't know. I think it all comes out in the wash, and I agree. As a new employee, you would almost have to show up to the office to learn stuff, to get the system, to get the computer equipment if you need it, or the logins. But I don't know, with being able to remote into people's machines and stuff, and again, sharing screens, it's getting easier than ever. There's hurdles, don't get me wrong, but there's also hurdles to having employees in the office. There's tons of employees that show up to the office and do nothing all day.
Well, and I would think of all that fewer headaches like HR is going to have during this time, because if employees aren't being frustrating in front of one another or causing issues.
Dress code?
Yeah, I think it's kind of a double-edged sword to some degree. Like, there's such great benefit, but there's also going to be definitely the downfalls, and not every business, again, is going to be able to adjust permanently to this because of their business model. They just can't. But it will be interesting because, like, Aaron, your job is very similar to how I'm treating virtual schooling, and the benefit of that flexibility. You don't necessarily have to be on calls from this time to this time because that's when the people you need to reach are available. You're doing projects and stuff. So you could do something at midnight if you had to sometimes.
And I have.
I know
There's
meetings and stuff, but
certain times, yeah, you have to be there for it, and sometimes you can reschedule it too if you have something else going on. But again, a lot of employers, like you said, Amanda, they're way more flexible now, and they've kind of humanized their staff. Where it's like, hey, we get it, you're home with your kid, so we understand that. You know what, you might have to do a Zoom meeting with a bunch of kindergartners at 1:00 when we're having this team meeting. Well, you need to be there for the kid, and we'll catch you up or we'll record it. You can, replay it later and have questions. But I just see it kind of as innovation. Innovation has always been destructive to old ways, but it always creates new and I think better things.
Absolutely. And I also feel like happy employees are way more productive. I know when I'm happy, I'm way more productive. So if this is causing some people who were so burdened by the commute or being away from, their family and not being able to necessarily cook a meal because they weren't at home, so they're all these things. And if that burden has been taken off their shoulder and they can seriously sit for 6 to 8 hours and pump it out, I argue in many cases, if it's a mature with a solid work ethic employee, they can actually be more productive.
Oh, absolutely. And if you're still getting what you're paying for, are you out anything?
Yeah, because in the office, there's a lot of time wasted. Like when we're together in the office, I mean, really, how much are we doing? It's really more just seeing each other, picking each other's brains, maybe making a couple calls, but that's not our power hour. That's our, hey, how we doing type things and just feel good time. So, but that's in art industry, it's not necessarily a waste. It's not like we're burning someone else's dime.
Right. Exactly. I tell you what, I worked at an office of like 500 plus people. You walk around, there's YouTube up on stream.
Oh, of course.
There's so much wasted time.
Yeah, they're on Facebook. They're doing it just as much in the workspace. I agree with you, Aaron.
I think people are actually working harder working from home because they're trying to get as much done in the time that they've allowed themselves to get their project done, that I think people are being more efficient. Like I said, if you're a salary employee and I just care about this product you produce and you can do it in a 6-hour workday, all for you, because your salary is based on what I need you to do. And if you're doing what I need you to do,
absolutely,
do it 2 hours a day. This is what we've agreed to.
Absolutely.
Pay me hourly then, and then you have to pay me for all the the projects I work on that I'm working till midnight, or I'm working 12 plus hours a day on something because the deadline's been short, and you can't have it all. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. I'm excited to see the long-term improvement that this has caused. COVID's caused a lot of terrible suffering, but I think it's really given us the excuse to finally move some things forward, such as school, such as employing, people. So I'm excited about that, to see where it is. Because I know Marcus would not have let me do the virtual schooling with Owen if it wasn't for COVID. He would have said no. And so he didn't have a choice. So here we are doing it and doing well.
That's beautiful too. I see school the same way. If you're able to get your work done in only a couple hours, like my niece, she's a genius. She gets all her stuff done super early. She wakes up, pounds it out. She's getting great grades. Like Gary Vee says, Gary Vee's all about skimming through school by the skin of your teeth and
absolutely
doing like minimal effort.
And I love Gary Vee, and I just love him so much because he can verbalize what's in my head. He can say, like, his stuff is where my mind is thinking. I just can't speak it the way he bluntly puts it. But I do think, and I'm probably going to get a lot of hate for this, but I really think we're at a point in our education system that it's not a one size fits all anymore. And they really need to look at, why are we teaching kids stuff that they're never going to use? I wish there was almost 2 different programs, because I would say more kids in this generation that's going through the education system I would say 50% of them, and I could be wrong, say 50% of Owen's class probably will not go to college. So why are we putting so much pressure on certain things for college credits when it's not even more than likely going to get utilized? I think there should be 2 different programs. Obviously, if your goals are to be a scientist, doctor, all of these things that actually you will have to have that future education. Okay, then really and I know that there's advanced courses. That's not what I'm talking about. What Owen's learning in 8th grade math right now would honestly be sufficient for your average person who does not plan on going to college through their senior year, because I'm looking at what he's doing now and I'm like, I've never done a thing with this.
Well, even then, like, goals change. You know, let's say, you know, you had someone that wanted to be a plumber all through school, then all of a sudden, you know what, I want to be a lawyer when they're in college. I think college is for. College, there's a lot of waste with college too. Like, let me ask
So
you
much
this.
waste.
Does a nurse, someone that wants to be a nurse, do they need to study, do they have to be required to take, or should they be required to take like a class in religion or an elective? I think electives are such a waste.
I do too. Like,
You want to be a nurse? Here's what you need. Blah, blah, blah. I don't care if my nurse studied, you know, Middle Eastern religion or Catholicism or you know, underwater basket weaving. Who cares? I want the nurse to be able to, you know, save my life, you know?
like my pottery class that I had to do just because I needed the credit. I think that's the silliest thing that exists. Just to take credits just for the sake of taking credits, that needs the shift.
Yeah, how can you go, hey, you know what, for this degree, you need 24 credits, and, you know, 15 of them are based on what you want to do. And the rest you have to make up. It can be anything you want.
Absolutely. And it, like you said, if they change their mind, there's ways to improve that. I mean, Marcus started going to school at 35. There's nothing wrong with jumping back on the bandwagon. I think colleges actually need to change. I would much rather see them teach these kids life skills and not the silly baloney life skills that they're teaching them today. No, I mean, how to balance a checking book, how to make sure your accounts are reconciled, how to do this, and that. Not that I would prefer that over the algebra.
Not everyone needs calculus, but everyone needs to know how to do a budget.
Absolutely.
Or, you know, what a retirement account is.
Yeah, those are such important things. And I feel like we've gotten so far away from that and shoving people in pottery. What is the point? And I think gym is stupid now. I really do. I mean,
William hates gym.
I don't see the point of why that has to be. I feel like if we could condense what we actually are requiring these kids to do in so much less time, and it's the state that's got, you know, making that decision. So I would love to see two different paths that a student can take. One that might be more for, you know, that future doctor, scientist, you know, whatever, because I think people know at a young age that they're going that route, or like me, who was like, I'm never going to do anything with my schooling ever. And I would much rather taken that road. And if I needed to pick it up in the future, I could have, because we have
35.
Yeah. We are going to learn more off of YouTube than we do in school.
I have learned so much off of YouTube, and I've learned so much in the year and a half that I've been out of school than I would have learned in school. They don't teach you anything about life and how to communicate and how to be just a person. You know, I don't know how to do my taxes or budget or even grocery shop or balance a diet. This is stuff they don't teach you, but it's stuff you need to learn and you need to know to be just a human being that's functioning. And I think that is ridiculous. You know, why do I know that the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell, but I don't know how to file my taxes? That I have to do.
That you have to do.
Or the IRS is knocking on my door.
Absolutely. So I definitely feel like there's a lot of room for improvement, and because they've stayed stagnant for how many years now? The same stuff is being taught as it was when I was in school.
That Shakespeare's really paying off.
They still learn Shakespeare. Why? If someone loves literature that much,
they're going to read.
They're going to read. They're going to hear about Shakespeare. They're going to fall in love with a teacher who has just as much passion for literature. And the teacher is going to introduce them. Owen could care less. And he shut down about Shakespeare. And I'm sorry, like, I don't need to know how to speak like that. I can know that it was written and he was a famous author during that time. Okay, fine. That's all you need to know. Like, to read it, no thanks.
Exactly. The sad thing is Willie, I think his first name is William Shakespeare, but
Good old Bill Shakespeare.
He was a children's writer. Like all of his plays are children plays and children books. That's just how we used to speak like that. And I think that's so funny. But what I hated about like my literature classes is they're like, well, what does this mean? Read between the lines. And I'm like, well, my interpretation of what is being said is going to be different from your interpretation. So how are you going to tell me that I'm wrong because I took it a different way?
I got into a heated argument with one of my college professors, and it was the most heated debate I've ever been in my life. And
Kind made you feel really good, didn't it?
I was required to take, well, I wasn't required. It was a Black literature course that I was required to take.
Probably fast.
And we were arguing over who the protagonist was in this story. And he said that it was, anyway, I'm getting all riled up about it.
Settle down, Aaron. Settle down.
Yeah, it was, anyway, I don't know why I opened up this can of worms. But like you said, it's two different interpretations. Who's right and who's wrong?
Yep. I think it's just more important that you be able to have the tools to defend what your stance is on it. That's all that matters. So, Aaron, if you're concluding that you might have a difference of opinion, but you can back it up just as thoroughly as your professor, you're not wrong.
I did.
Of course you did. I have no doubt you did. No, I look forward to a revolution because I think that'll help, not in the sense of war.
Revolution!
Just be clear on that. I know. I just think it needs a facelift. So I hope the schools, and it's not really the school as much as the state, I hope the people, the powers that be that make. Aaron, are you alive? Do you need to?
I am. I was trying to keep going. Keep with your thought. I wanted to.
I'm just really scared that something devastating just happened.
I noticed something I need to fix on my wall. But go on, keep going.
No. I just hope that the powers that be can look at the situation and just think a little bit more out of the box.
Do you think schools should just be privatized?
Yes, I 1,000% do, and the hate I'll get for saying that.
And I think that goes back to our earlier conversation about the online schools. If public schools stop seeing enrollment because people are choosing the online route, people are going to start going, well, I don't want my tax money to go to a school that I'm not using anymore. It just logistically doesn't make sense.
Right.
So if you see a collapse of public schools, I see definitely the private coming around.
Should you be able to vote if you don't own property?
I would say yes, because coming from a guy who doesn't own any property, define property. Are you talking physical?
So, for instance, should you be able to vote on a millage that comes off of property taxes if you don't own any property? Kind of going off your comment of, if my kid doesn't go to this school, why is that?
I thought you meant vote for the presidential election. I'm like, is this like the 1600s, Aaron LeDuc?
No, hear me out. Because if you're not gonna be affected by like a millage, we'll zoom down into that and make everyone uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't make me uncomfortable. I think, and I hear what you're saying, and it seems very logical. I think just the burden of trying to work through and keep it updated of who owns it, who doesn't own it, who just bought, who no longer lives there. I mean, we see in our profession how the turnover rate and how slow the recording is, especially because of COVID and stuff. So while I hear what you're saying, and I think yeah, you're right. Maybe the people who only
I didn't say one way or another. I just posed the question.
No. I'm saying your point your question is a good question, because I think that there's something to that. I just think it would be so hard to keep track of that it would be almost impossible.
See, where I kind of disagree with you is on renters. Renters, they can have kids, they can be renting a house and be living in the community and, rent there for 20, 30 years, almost their whole life, be in that community the whole time. I think just because they don't own the property doesn't mean that they should have a say or should not have a say with what happens in the community. Because ultimately, as living in the community, you're still paying those taxes when it comes to your rent. Even if you're in a complex or something like that, the rent will still go up because of the property taxes. So I think no matter what, if you're a property owner or not,
Mhm.
I think having the right to vote on millages would be fine because you're ultimately in the community and,
I think that's
you
a
want
really
to better
good
your
point.
community.
Fair point.
I
Fair point.
I do you want to state your opinion, Aaron, or it was just
Not
like
at all. I'm just throwing you two under the bus, and we're almost out of time.
no? And I think I don't think we're set either way. I think that's a thoughtful question.
Right.
I just really think from the management of it, it just would darn near be impossible.
From a logistical standpoint.
Yeah,
And I think both sides of it has an argument. Like AJ, you made a great point. Your children are still affected. Why do you not get a say if
yeah,
you don't own
because
property?
your children that go to say a school that we're trying to get the school millage passed or whatever, I mean, they would definitely benefit from that. And a community such as Ida that's very small, that probably would be a manageable size population to only allow certain people. But think of like New York City, how
I
they're
try
just
not to.
but countrywide there would just be so many municipalities that just oh my gosh, it's stressing me out. It's
And
making
then
me
think about it in New York City itself, not everyone owns a house or property they rent. Most
That's
That's a
people.
good point
yeah.
there. That's a good point there.
So I guess defining property is a little tricky, but to vote, you have to have a property tied to your name.
Right, that you vote in that precinct or
Exactly.
whatnot. Good question. I like that, Aaron. Got me thinking. I like it. I like it. Well, we are.
Don't let this poncho fool you. A deep thinker.
You've proven that in the past. It's okay. Although,
I'm gonna
again,
be
for
comfortable today.
any of our viewers who are just listening, make sure you stop on YouTube or our Facebook page to see the poncho in the flesh. You look
The
good,
poncho.
Aaron.
I like it. I like it.
It's very comfortable. Like
I wanted to get a gray one.
I've got a long day ahead of me. A gray one. I wanted a blue one, but they gave me a green one, and I couldn't complain. It was a cool day.
You're too much, Aaron.
I obviously love it.
Well, any
just
final
throw it in with
words?
some dreads.
But some dreads. Got some curls, man. That
Oh my
counts, right?
gosh.
Can you have dreads with curly hair? Or
Yeah,
would they just be
right?
curly dreads?
Dreads are like when you can either get them done or you just don't wash your hair or brush your hair and it naturally will dread up. But yeah, that's all dreads are, just knots in your hair. It's very expensive to get
What
done.
would these people's pillows smell like? They don't wash their hair.
I don't know. I actually know a guy who in high school got his hair dreaded. I think he still has dreads to this day.
The short dreads and stuff I sometimes think can look very neat. But I see some people that their hair is like so long, and I always think like, does it go in the toilet water?
That was just what I was gonna say. But I'm like, how do you not poop
How
on
do
your
you
own
not?
hair?
Like, you would have to like go around your neck. I don't know. Like, yeah, like it just grows.
Around your own
Whenever I see
neck.
that really long hair, I'm like, does it ever went in the toilet? Like, I want to ask.
So please, if you have hair past your butt, how do you keep it out of the toilet?
Water level hair.
Comment below. We need to know.
I've never thought about that
Now
until
you
Never?
never.
We've
Get
just
to live.
we've opened AJ's world today to the dreadlock.
Amanda and I are like, we're the same person with how we think. Because I'm like you. You know those giant tractors with the big wheels?
Oh my
I'm always like, could I fit my car under there?
There's
Like,
so
could I just
many around
drive?
here too. We like well, not necessarily right now, but so because we weren't on the road as much, but so many of our pictures we would send to each other is with the tractor in front of us. You think I can make it? And with
That
my
was a phase, yeah.
Encore, when I had my Encore, I really thought I could. I'm pretty sure Aaron figured out the measurements of my terrain and was like, Amanda, you will not be able to fit. Don't do it.
Dear Amanda, you will not make it.
Are you talking
Don't
about
do
the
this.
corn sprayers that sit up really high?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Aaron, you might fit. I think they're like 9 feet tall.
The Sable's pretty tall. I'm pretty sure with my first car, the 88 Buick Riviera, I would have been just fine. That was a little lower. The Fusion, I think, would. Because my Sable sits higher than the Fusion. I think you'd be fine. I don't want to test this theory. But
There is going to come a day that I think the opportunity for me to test it is going to come. And I really hope you both are with me. I want you to experience that with me.
You know, there's some kid out there that was riding his bike that was just
Oh.
like coming across. He's like, I'm going for it. And he swerved
Go
under.
for it.
And that poor driver was just like,
I know. I know. Yeah. They
You
would.
think
Right.
if they're stuck in traffic, they just go in between the cars.
yeah.
Just makes sense. Just makes sense. All right. Well, we're so out of time. So any final words?
Don't hate us. Thank you.
I know. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. I'm Amanda Sharp, the mom.
Andrew Lang, the Bachelor.
Apparently Duke the dad.
And find us on YouTube, Facebook, and all places that, stream podcast. Because we're there. We're there. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next week. Bye.